Terrible 2, Chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3. It was well past midnight, and Miles paced around his new bedroom. It was too big. The walls were too white. There were boxes everywhere. He should have been asleep, but he was awake because this room was all wrong, and the house was all wrong, and the yard was all wrong. Miles didn't care about big rooms or houses or yards. This wasn't a fresh start. It was a rotten start. He turned off the lamp that sat on a box and got back in bed. Miles couldn't sleep. Through the window of his old room, Miles would listen to the sound of waves crashing as he drifted off to slumber. Miles got out of bed and opened the window. Somewhere in the distance, a cow mooed. Moo! The air outside his old room smelled like the sea. This air smelled like cows. Today was a bad day, but tomorrow would be an even worse day. Tomorrow he would be starting his new school. Miles went to bed with a sense of dread. Miles awoke with a sense of dread. He opened his eyes and stared at his blank ceiling. Last night he dreamed it all had been a dream, and now he wished he were still dreaming. Miles shut his eyes tight. He tried to fall back asleep, but downstairs he could hear his mother shuffling around the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Breakfast smelled like eggs and cows, although that might have just been the cows. Miles ate his eggs. They tasted like dread, although that might have just been the dread. The dread stayed with him on the car ride to Yawny Valley Science and Letters Academy. Mom, what if I skip this grade? Miles asked. Lots of kids skip a grade. Then I could just spend this year working on projects. You know I have a lot of projects. This could be my project year. Miles, when you skip a grade, you don't get a year off. You just start the next grade. I know that, Mom, but if I did that, I'd be younger than all the rest of the kids. That wouldn't be good for my development. That's why I think my project year is such a good idea. You're not having a project year. Maybe I could take this year to travel. You know, I've been wanting to see the world. They say traveling is the best education. No. Maybe I could take a sabbatical. Do you know what a sabbatical is, Mom? Yes. Do you know what a sabbatical is? It's basically a project year. No. They pulled up to the front of the building. Did you remember everything? Judy asked. Miles checked around him. He had his new backpack, his new lunch bag containing his lunch, his new binder, his new folders, his new jacket, and most importantly, his old pranking notebook. It was a boring-looking notebook on the outside, of course, so as not to seem suspicious, but inside it was a fabulous notebook filled with blueprints and maps and notes and plans for all the best pranks Miles had pulled. The ghost prank, the missing front tooth prank, Operation Soggy Homework. They were all in there, plus others. 2 cats instead of a dog, fish in the bed, lemonade without any sugar, Mission Pie. Inside was all the great stuff that had made Miles famous. Ketchup that looks like blood, raisins everywhere. Operation Sandy Shorts. On your first day at a new school in a new town, you got to decide what kind of kid you were going to be. You could be the smart kid or the kid who has cool shoes. You could be the kid who knows everything about old cars or current events or World War I. The kid who always has a chapstick, chess kid, basketball kid, student government kid, kid who organizes canned food drives, front row kid, back row kid, kid who always has his hand up even though he doesn't know the answers, kid who's allowed to see R-rated movies, kid who isn't allowed to see R-rated movies but just says he does and just makes up their plots based on the previews, kid whose family doesn't own a TV and just wants to watch your TV. On the first day of school, you could fake a French accent and be the foreign kid. You could bring your teacher a gift and be the kiss-up kid. Expensive school supplies kid, kid who sharpens his pencil 10 times per period. The 2 different socks quirky kid, the kid who wears shorts every day regardless of the weather. Today was a day when you could decide to become a new kid and be that kid for the rest of your life. But Miles didn't want to be any of those kids. He didn't want to be a new kind of kid at all. Miles wanted to be the same kind of kid he was at his old school, the prankster. Miles had been the best prankster his old school had ever seen, and he'd be the best prankster at his new school too. Bye, Mom. He got out of the car and surveyed Yawny Valley Science and Letters Academy. It was a squat brick building in the shape of a squat brick. Miles looked around and saw all the typical school stuff. There was the typical marquee. There was a typical flag attached to the typical flagpole. There was a typical gaggle of kids. The typical hedges, the typical trees, the typical school entrance blocked by somebody's typical car. Wait, that couldn't be right. Miles looked again. He approached the crowd of kids. Miles heard snickers. He heard snorts. He even heard some guffaws. There's a car on the steps? One kid said, stating the obvious. What is going on? Said the same kid. I mean, seriously, can somebody tell me? This kid was named Stuart. Anyone could have told him what was going on, but nobody did. That sort of thing happened a lot to Stuart. Miles' heart was beating fast. The bell rang, setting off the car alarm. Nobody moved. I mean, how are we supposed to get into school with that car there? Stuart collapsed into hysterical tears. Miles smiled for the first time since leaving his old town. That was a pretty good prank. Then he stopped smiling. It was a very good prank. He frowned. It appeared the school already had a prankster, a very good prankster. Miles didn't know anything about World War II or his socks matched. If Miles wasn't the school prankster, he was nobody.